This year is the entrance to the grand chamber within the pyramid of souls on earth. As humanity has come through the long corridor of 2019, so they now arrive within a vast chamber. They come out of darkness and confined space to a seeming vastness. It is still a mystery, but now the vision is expanded. There will be those who cover their eyes and try to return into the corridor, but that way is no more. For these souls, seeing will not be believing. They will create their own limited sight and scurry to the furthest places where they will find only more space. Others will pause on the threshold to the chamber and wait. Wait for others to lead them. Many will wait too long. Then there will be those who see and know the path. They will hold deep communion with the guardians of the way and find their true role amidst the chaos. The year of 2020 offers 2020 sight. Resolution can only come through self-awareness. It does not take many to break open the seals, yet those few must be unwavering and diligent in thought, word, and deed. There will be great undoing in this year. What began to be revealed in 2019 will come undone as tangled twine in 2020. As each strand is unwrapped, ancient barriers will come screaming down as an agony. What has been kept hidden for eons will pool inside the mouths of the naysayers until it cannot be contained any longer. The lies will turn to dust on the tongue, and many will become broken of spirit as a result. Yet this desertion of hope will be replaced by resolve to create anew, for hope must often become distilled into a sweeter wine of longing from which a new creation emerges. Hope is generally a focus on the need for a particular outcome. Understanding grasps the reality and frees the emotions, charging the soul to action. 2020 is the beginning in earnest of a march to the promised land. Yet who has made this promise? It is given by the mandate of Lord Michael before time on earth began. So it will be fulfilled when these souls of earth free themselves from the self-imposed constraints they have created in time. However, there is more immediate brightness to shine in 2020. It will be raised up as a little light, so small as to be scoffed at by those who cannot see beyond their noses. Yet it will be the precious thing that grows in the night. For all those who can behold it and recognize its power, a true awakening will unfold for them from that glimmer. Each of you, look for, follow, and nurture this light. It comes from the Wayshower's lamp. From the mandate of Zarathustra, humanity will bear witness to the whole truth.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone, to Blue Star Rising, the Templar Awakening. And we hope you enjoyed the message for 2020 that we just shared, that Maia received from the Thothic stream, which is her intuitive connection to the inner planes of wisdom that's been coming through for her for many years. And So for the first hour, we're going to be exploring not only the message for 2020, but the message for 2019, so we can see how this is playing out in terms of the global unfolding, the ascension timeline, the geopolitics, the global infection, etc., and leading into the what I believe he calls the cavernous space of the year 2020, in which there will be so much revealed that has been hidden for centuries, so much unveiling, so much revelation, that many people will not be able to deal with it. Many will wait to have others explain it to them, share it with them, help them cross this threshold of disorienting revelation and upheaval. And some will wait too long, as the message says. So, Maia, would you like to just start to share with us your understanding of how this is unfolding in the light of the message we just shared with everyone?
Yes. I think, when I reread it after the fact, sorry about the pussycat, trying to get rid of him. When I reread it after the fact, more recently, after we've come into the whole plague, sorry to say the plague, but in what it certainly is, I saw it became more obvious to me what was really he was talking about. But I think it's more than that, By more, I don't mean even more and more bad news. I just mean it's deeper. It's a wake up time, and I think we all recognize that. But Thoth is alluding to a time where everything is disgorged from, the old toxic world. Maybe it doesn't all happen in 1 year, certainly not. But, this is the beginning process of that. It changes the whole picture. We can no longer, as he said, many will want to turn back and go back down the corridor of 2019 and get away from this. They want to go back. They won't be able to go back. This is a totally new era, and there will be things about it that are very difficult to handle. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot that is enlightening, extremely enlightening for us. That's why he's saying the little light, focusing on that little light that you could miss in all the chaos, but that is there for you. And he speaks about, the guardians of the way or whatever. And it's not, super beings. It's just you and me and us that have, they're focusing on the light. They're focusing on what we need to do and know and speak during this time. Which is not to say that we are blind to the situations at hand, certainly not, but we are, we're totally attendant to their reasons and why we have to move through them in a almost a joyous way. That is not happy, but, bringing the joy of consciousness into our space and living in that vibration. It's going to help. It's going to translate out into the planet. It's going to help people that feel so lost right now.
So this moment where he speaks of this little light, which will seem so small in the beginning that it will be dismissed, but that will grow into a powerful transformative force. What's your sense of, it was a little mysterious to me, what is being referred to, do you think, there, in terms of this little light that many will dismiss at first and that will grow?
Well, it's still mysterious to me too, quite frankly. But it's really up on the horizon that will bring us into a position of saying, okay, we see the dark clouds, but there's something else here, and that something is a black cat.
What's so funny? What?
I'm sorry, Michael. This is part of what you're going to have to cut out. I have to do something about this. So you want to put the recording on pause?
No, Well, I think we may just need to accept Moo as the guardian of this broadcast. And, there's just a very powerful presence there because you can't put him out or he'll scratch at the door. And,
That's
you could
right.
put him in your lap and just keep him quiet by petting him. Or we
Well,
could see him
I've got
behind
all
you
this.
as the guardian deity of the sacred chair. And when I'm speaking for an extended period of time, Moo will make Moo sounds. This is ladies and gentlemen, please be introduced to Maya's sacred cat, whose name, of course, is Moo. Not a cow's sound, but the ancient continent beneath the waves. Anyway, and Moo has been spooked and activated by some energetic transformations going on in Maya's house that he's witnessed. So he needs to be placed right behind Maya on her chair in order to feel safe. So we're just going to accept him and his guiding presence.
You notice he's looking into the living room, or where best he can see, because he's fixated with the living room, where all my sacred objects and things are, where certain beings, with my permission, have been working to create an energy field. And apparently he walked in on them 3 nights ago, and he saw them there. And he's feeling the energy that has changed in there because of it. He won't even take his food in the hallway. This is morning delicious wet food that he gets. It's a treat. He's scared to even eat it in there. I have to put it in the bedroom. So this has been going on. You see, he's fixated with that room. He's having
because
to deal with
he
his
walked in on some energetic processes that some higher beings were helping to activate and energize in your room. So, I mean, personally, I hate it when, somebody walks in on my energetic activations. And so.
Well, I have 3 other cats, but they're not acting that way at all. He was the one that got pixelated when he was in there, So anyway.
He provides a nice background for your silver hair, and it kind of goes with the chair. In terms of color composition, right? I'm guessing so.
Yes.
And it allowed us to share with everybody this little story about Moo perceiving energetic, transformative blessings. I would say is a good word that's going on there for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
So we're going to keep all this in because it's just real and sweet and kind of fun. So. Anyway, moving right along.
So this is what I was saying. What did you ask me? I can't even remember.
We were talking about the little light, the modest light that many will witness.
Right. So I'm not going to pretend I know what that light is at this point, because I don't. We have to realize, when I got the 2020 message, I'm going, wow, this didn't sound too good. I wonder what this is about. I had no idea. Now we do have a lot more idea, at least, what's going on. So the little light thing, I don't know, but my feeling about it is that this is, when he didn't say a dim light, he just said a little light. A little light can be very bright.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling that those of us in the flow, we're going to pick up on that. And what he's saying is, when you pick up on it, when you see that little light, don't go, oh, that's interesting, that's a little light. You're going to go, hey, that's what Thoth was speaking about. Or even if you haven't heard this, people might think, well, this might be special. Let's bring this into our heart center. Let's focus on this. Let's see where this takes us. So it can be something that's on the news, amidst all the quote unquote fake news and everything else. Or it could be something that, I don't know, maybe you're watching a show about UFOs and, some of the latest sightings, and all of a sudden there's a little light, and it's not just a regular UFO, it's something else. I'm making up stuff here, but I'm just saying that it could be something, in that direct, anywhere, but you just hold that energy present and feel if that's really speaking to you. And I think, in a more generic sense, the little light also could be translating just the fact that we all have our heart lights. And those heart lights, if they fill together in a dramatic way, those are the little lights that can take hold and become the transformative ray. And as I'm saying that, I'm getting a real yes on that. In fact, that's what just came through. That's why I said it. You know, I
Okay.
start conjecturing about something a lot of times, and Thoth will just say, no, this is what it is. And so it's the heart light, but it's not just, oh, it's how nice. We all have heart lights. It's like, no, you have the little light. Let's use it. Let's connect it. Let's create the bigger light.
Mm.
Don't just say, yeah, everybody has a heart light, and yes, we need to be in our hearts. I mean, that can become platitudes. Let's go beyond that. Let's see it as a physical, electrical, energetic, cosmic light that we carry in our bodies. It's not woo-woo. And we can connect that little light with everybody else's little lights. And what do we have? You know, we have the strong, pulsing presence of the divine.
Yes, that resonates for me, you know, when I think about, for example, the work we're doing here and how many other similar, you know, inspired movements are going on around the world right now, you know, particularly specifically invoking divine aid, specifically invoking the Christ and Divine Mother, these different aspects of the divine that touch the hearts of people, that it's easy to dismiss. You know, there is in mainstream media, and I've noticed this really over the course of my life, you know, where there's a moral context and a system of values that permeates the perspective of mainstream media and editorials that, you know, particularly more what you'd call East Coast, Washington Post, New York Times type, that does not take God seriously. It is subtly devalued, belittled, and dismissed in a way that has a pervasive influence, you know.
Yes.
And I am seeing there is a, you know, a countervailing movement, you know, particularly just, you know, on the web, on Facebook, on alternative journalism, where, you know, the reality of God, of spirit, we're just seeing how much a part of daily life that is for millions, for, you know, most Americans, I would say. And, you know, the process of seeking an experience of the divine, not just, you know, okay, you go to church, you hear a sermon, and then you know, you go out and act the same way the rest of the week. That, you know, it's been widely observed that people are not satisfied with that anymore. That the reason attendance has fallen off at a lot of churches isn't because people are turning away from God, and they're turning away from, you know, institutional religions that do not offer a direct experience of God in some tangible, intimate way. And that, you know, this is gradually shifting. You're seeing that, like, for example, there's this woman, Dana Ashley, who's doing really excellent, you know, journalism on her own. I mean, there's an independent journalism on the infection and fifth generation and all that. And she's a Christian, and she doesn't foist that on her YouTube audiences, but she does close these investigative pieces she does simply by saying, God bless you, we'll see you next time. And to me, this is perhaps what this little light that's being referred to is. That, you know, for us with the Johannine Templars, Blue Star Rising, the Sacred Academy, the work we're doing here in Colorado, we are unabashed about our devotion to the universal Christ as became embodied in Jesus Christ, and there is the universal Christ consciousness, which is in every particle creation to the farthest star, which is from all eternity. Which actually in the gospel it says, before Abraham was, I am, Jesus says. So there is that universal Christ consciousness, and then there is the unique embodiment of that in the man, Jesus of Nazareth. And when I say unique, I mean it's my own personal understanding and belief that this wasn't the first and only time in the history of the cosmos that the Christ consciousness was embodied in a human soul, in a sentient being. For the Hindus of India, the teachings of Lord Krishna are clearly those of an avatar, one who had become united to the Christ consciousness. And one could go on, but the magic of that little light that will be dismissed at first and is growing, to me, that's what that's really about, is about an acknowledgement, a devotional connection to an acknowledgement of the reality of God. I just feel it's important to recognize that with the sacred science that we do our best to share here, tools that we all can use to raise our own vibration and also to focus on specific causes and intentions for healing, and really importantly to break through what we might call the dark net of control on the planet. The Thesiolectric protocol that you've brought forth in your work, Maia, the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol of working with toroidal energies, which later in the same program we will have the wonderful Mary Hardy, through whom the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol first came, and Gayle Mack and Chad Edward, who are also teachers of the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol within Mary Hardy's temple of SAKKARA. Gayle Mack is a sister of that temple, and Chad is a knight of that temple. And they are also, of course, part of our Johannine Templar brother sisterhood as well. And we're very honored to have them be joining us a little later in this program. It's an amazing, fascinating story, but it all comes down to sharing sacred science, practical tools that can be applied. This isn't about theory here. We can share all kinds of fascinating theory, wonderful stories, but every week we are going to share with you and practice as best we can with you these very powerful sacred tools, some ancient and some what you might call, modern updates of ancient sacred tools. So I've gone on for a bit, but I just wanted to bring out and focus on that small light that the message talks about. I also wanted to mention that, that message for 2020 seems very prophetic now. And just to remind everybody, this came through on December 31st. So we're already seeing earth-shaking revelations and unveilings. That's what was shared as coming back in, New Year's Eve. None of us, there was a rumor of some infection in China, but none of us saw this coming. So that's unfolding. It's really worth listening to. It's of the presentations you've shared, Maia. To me, that message of 2020 is one of the most powerful, and it resonates. People just recognize, yes, this is what's going on. Did you want to comment further on that?
No, I kind of wanted to segue into the 2019 material. If that's
okay. Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now this, I'm going to read it off my phone, and I'm not reading the whole article. Bear in mind that the article I'm reading here, Michael will supply a link to the 2020 message because it's written out, and it has a longer video if you care to watch it, but the writing is written out in this link. But at the very top, it has a link to the 2019 message. So that's where you can go to read the whole thing. but I'm reading quite a bit of it here because it's just needs to be done. So we start out with something that actually I received many years ago. I'm talking about maybe 20 years ago, maybe longer. And this is an Akashic translation by me from the Ra Maj Codex, a pre-deluge text of prophecy written by the light bringers of the Mayan world. And it says, "And of the day none has spoken, nor have their eyes seen that which is manifest therein. The coming is upon wings of light that circle in the gray dawn as a nesting anka bird." Well, the anka is translated to more ancient Egyptian times as the Bennu, which is important in this article. "The egg of the earth is born anew, cracked from within its sacred womb. Oh, out from its center the chick arises, its beak a slender knife that cuts through the weave of the world. Lo, a web of gold is spun, a pattern of the angelus stars. Souls move upon its fine threads, gathering eternity in a wave of exaltation as they plunge into the heart of the blue star." Now, before I continue, this emphasis here on cracked from the earth, the egg of the earth is born anew, cracked from within its sacred womb. Well, that's the inner earth. And you will find that I'm going to be talking a lot about inner earth on these programs. Out from its center, the chick arises. Out from its center. The inner earth has so much to do with what we're going through, how we're going to get to the ascension dynamic, or we're already in the dynamic, but to the ascension portal. All of this is so connected to our brethren within the inner earth. Another topic for another time, but I just wanted to emphasize that here. So that's the end of that quote. So I'm saying now, on the date of December 26, 2018, while laying down for a rest, I had a flash of an image. Even though it was for just maybe 2 seconds, every detail of it was burned into my brain. I saw a statue I knew to be Egyptian. It was of a man, but only from above his navel to just below his throat. In the carved stone, he cradled a bird with a long beak that was curved downward. The eyes of the bird were very large. After the flash, I knew that the statue was of Osiris and the bird was the Bennu. That's the Bennu. He's a mythical bird of Egypt associated with the phoenix. Basically the one and the same. Although Thoth informs me is not mythical, it did exist in the most ancient times, and it does still exist in the inner earth. I received then that the Bennu would usher in a new era for Earth beginning in 2020. However, I was shown that 2019 was like a long corridor leading to the sacred chamber of 2020. I had an experience last year. No, I'm not going to read that. It's okay, but we can skip it. Let me go down here. So the map was seems to be an important relevance here because it outlines the surest path of the timelines to go into the Rana time wave. So let me stop and explain something a bit about the Rana time wave as I'm scrolling through here. So let's talk about this. Now, in the early 1990s, I wrote about the Rana time wave, and I'm going to read it here. The Rana is the true flow of time in this universe. The Earth and other worlds are created as a path for karmic resolution to prevent certain forces from building within the sacred trinity of Pleiades, Sirius, and Orion, where the pure thresholds of light might become violated in time. These worlds including the Earth, are created within a parallel construct of the Rana time flow, but still aligned to it. Once the Earth had been created, further karmic forces, and eventually the Earth fractures built, and eventually the Earth fractures away from its parallel track with the Rana time flow, and the Kali rift is formed. This is an actual fracture in the Earth's time grid flow within. This is an actual fracture in the Earth's time grid or flow that was created as a result of interdimensional implosions, which happens sequentially in a linear construct, but simultaneously in a true perspective on the sphere of time. In other words, as a result of sentient will pursuing its own course of action as a separate focus from that of the true time grid consciousness of the Rana time flow, certain occurrences came together in Earth's time construct as a synchronous event to cause a fracture of true time in our reality, thus creating the Kali Rift. So the Kali Rift is the gap that exists between our true time flow and where we currently reside in the continuum. Okay, I know that's a lot to take in. And I had set up here, and I'm going to have to make a correction, that this was a timeline. It is not. The Rana time wave is a flowing sine wave, as it is. And it is it contains the direction frequency that we all need to, like little minnows that we need to swim into and connect with. So it's not a line, and I misquoted that to say that above. It's a flow. So timelines that move into that flow or coordinate with it, synchronous with it, all of those timelines are, productive. But if you break with that, the Kali Rift, if you break with that, then you create fractured lines, and they don't lead anywhere. And you have to bring them back into synchronization with the Rana. That, my friends, according to what I received, of course, I can only go by that, is what we're all about here. We're trying to, at this point in time, we're trying to bring, and we have been for a long time, these fractured elements back into, get away from the fracture and get into the flow. We can create multiple timelines. We can say, well, let's choose this one. I don't know, maybe that one. But as long as their frequencies are aligned to the flow, any one of those timelines is going to bring us to the right port in the storm.
Okay.
But yeah, you want to say something there, Michael?
I just want to look at how when we talk about timelines and we talk about the timeline war that's going on right now between what is called, the dark faction and the light, very broadly speaking, that there is what you've referred to as the Box Canyon timeline, that the DF, what is called the dark faction, wants to take the collective consciousness of humanity into a dominated, controlled, suppressed world. If we take the consciousness into that, is what will manifest in that timeline. And that it's very crucial for each one of us to do everything we can to lift our consciousness and frequency above this bleak, despairing consciousness that leads us into that timeline. And so when I'm looking at what you're talking about the Rana time wave, as opposed to a timeline, that the Kali Rift in that was created essentially by that was created essentially through the exercise of free will, as human souls, and we have the sovereign right to screw things up. And that within, redirecting the flow into the Rana time wave, what might be called the flow that leads towards freedom and peace and bliss and full manifestation of your heart's desires within, a divine paradigm. It's not as if, like, hey, you've misused your free will and we need to corral you all and bring you back into the right thing where you're going to do the right thing. No, we still have free will, but it just sounds as if we are much more subject to being misdirected if we're out of alignment with the Rana time wave. Would that be an accurate way of describing it?
Yeah, it certainly would. And so to continue with Kybit here, the wife of Nephra, had depicted the true path of time in the universe, in this universe. And again, we're not talking about timelines, but the path, the directional flow. make such a statement as the true path of time in this universe is an oversimplification of the enormity and complexity of this topic. However, this article is focused on my vision of Osiris and the Bennu, so I'm not wishing to stray too far from the topic at hand. Suffice to say, Kybit's river map would have shown the key points of cosmic energy dynamic moments, which would lead us from the rift back into the wave, further guide us down its course. In the map, the Bennu bird was depicted as the way-shower. He was Osiris as the Bennu. We are now, as I write this, on the brink of 2019. This coming year will take us our first steps down the long corridor, inclining upward into the sacred pyramid temple, which is a primary node within the Assyrian map of the way-shower following Ra-Nuit. So, you know, everything that we did in 2019, and it was a rough road, but it was a preparatory, if I can say the word, road to get us to where we are now safely. And I know, you know, it says we're safe. It doesn't sound like we're safe. There were so many things that could have happened in 2019 that could have been made 2020 incredibly bleak. And even though this looks really bad, and obviously many people have died tragically from it and all of this, it could have been much worse. We were put on a better trajectory because of what went on in what they did for us, helped us, I shouldn't say for us, helped us to do in 2019. So many things are going on behind the scenes that our conscious minds, you know, with all our daily stuff going on, are not aware of. Of course, many people working in the spiritual, like Mary and others, are aware of those things, or aware of many of them.
Yeah.
But you know, the mass people, the mass consciousness is not. So conclude with this just a little bit more here. Nuit, the name of the wife, not the wife. Nuit is the name of the river, I guess. I've forgotten who she is here. Just a minute. Yes. So Nuit is the same as Nut, N-U-U-T. So, you know, the archetype, the Egyptian archetype of Nut. The archetype of Nut is the living, this is Thoth. The archetype of Nut is the living symbol I give for the new Earth star creation matrix. It is more than just a creatrix for the new Earth, but certainly incorporates that dynamic in her divine radiance. The original Nut represented the Lemurian principle of going forth to heal, restore, create, and resolve, and also to expand generative radiance. She is the creatrix of the dwelling place of the gods. That is, this archetype represents the universal laws which can assign actions to basic creational forces. Nut sends rays of her creation through the whirling pillar of Yehuda, which is another topic I won't get into here. It is her cosmic rays which compose the Elohim, or creation. So, the implications of this new era approaching are beyond me at this time. That was 2018 actually. I can only say that it offers us a grand vista beyond the limitations we have thus far encountered through our own known history. And so then, if we go to part 2 quickly, because part 2 is very short, I'm only going to read a tiny bit of it. I asked Thoth what we should call this new era. You know, we need a name for it, right? And he suggested to call it Ra Star, that's R-A is one word, S-T-A-R is the second, 2020, as the beginning, obviously, of the new era. But he likes to frame beginning times to represent the whole era in some cases. Well, he had given me Ra Star 2000, was given to me many years ago, even before the year 2000. And so I go to that context, and Ra Star 2000 is a hierarchically generated planetary oversoul, which allows Earth's humanity to work within a stabilized consciousness bridge to the new Earth star future, an ascended reality of Earth. Using the Ra Star 2000, this bridging will be able to take place in the midst of the increasingly distorted sacred geometries of the old Earth reality. Remember how long ago I wrote this, like I think it was 1999. The distortion of these old Earth sacred geometries will be increasing as the planet moves through the magnetic solar, magnetic planetary, and other cosmic influences, which are beginning to affect the planet in very tangible ways and will continue to do so into the future, right up to the point of planetary ascension. The Raw Star 2000 Light Program creates a new geometry bridge or oversoul so that humanity can work with both forms, old and new, and not become entirely enmeshed in the warping effect which causes the distortion. So then, speaking in 2018, so then to mark 2020 as a Raw Star node would seem to be significant. Recently, so in other words, Raw Star 2000 brought us up now to Raw Star 2020. So that means this is the shifting of the gears from the 2000 to the 2020, but it still has the same significance. It's just the next step. So it's a bridge. It's helping us to create new vectors that countermand the distortion fields that are coming into Earth's field now. And these distortion fields are, some of it, of course, the main thing about the distortion fields is that they're coming off of a natural process that the planet Earth is going through, just like, the cycles, any kind of cycles, natural cycles. This is a cosmic cycle. And we are misnaming this process as global warming, when actually, certainly, there's a lot of warming going on, a lot of stuff going on here, but it's actually solar forcing. And this whole solar forcing thing is setting the stage to move us through into the next arena where, we need to go for our planetary ascension. It's not a comfortable one, but it's a necessary one. So in 2020 now, we're having the Raw Star 2020 is saying we have to, what they're doing is helping us move through these distortion fields, because the distortion fields are created by a natural event. But the negative forces can take advantage of that, or they would like to. Okay, Michael.
Yes, I'm following what you're saying, and the distortions, I think are what are in most people's field right now. As I say, there are natural forces that are moving the planet through this transformative process, and that there are moments of distortion that are just intrinsic to that process, which the DF, dark forces, will naturally want to take advantage of and try to steer us down a dark timeline. And the sacred science that we're sharing here, and that we're about to share specific tools with Mary Hardy of the Temple of SAKKARA, and with Gayle Mack and Chad Edward in just a few minutes here, that these sacred tools, if we use them in just a simple daily way, can help us align with them on a time wave, and also to kind of withstand the buffeting of these distortions that are in the field that you're describing, right? And that, of course, the DF are doing their best to utilize the upheaval to take us in a downward direction. Would that be accurate, according to what you're
Yes, it
seeing?
would. It would. And of course, the dark forces have their own way of manipulating these fields, not ad infinitum, but they have a certain amount of manipulation that they can impose, but only if we cooperate. And we cooperate through fear, chaos, anger, all the stuff that we like to do. That just helps them out extremely, because then they can use that to, add a little layer or two onto all of this. Now, I have just one last thing to share from this. It's very short. And so I asked Thoth, what is our role here, our vision, and how may we better facilitate the journey? So, very simply, our role to unmask fearlessly and shine the light of who we are. Our vision, to keep our eyes on the path. Let no distractions overcome us. Hold firmly to the golden thread leading us to the threshold of the star of our becoming. Let our sight be filled with the glory of the station we represent on earth. Let me read that again. Let our sight be filled with the glory of the station we represent on earth. We maybe talk about that in a minute. We facilitate the journey best by helping one another, love, compassion, giving of self. And he concludes with, while we are sovereign in our soul, we are unified in our spirit. We can no longer be anything but servants of light. Amen.
Amen indeed. Could you read that first sentence about shining one's light? The very first sentence struck me.
Yeah. What our role was to unmask fearlessly, and shine the light of who we are.
Yes, to unmask fearlessly and shine the light of who we are. Such a powerful sentence. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I feel it's not just talking about, I mean, we've all said this, you know, I'm just going to be me, I'm going to shine my light, you know, and a lot of people say it, they're, you know, having situations in their family, they're, you know, whatever, and people are judging them because they're spiritual and metaphysical, and they say, no, I'm just going to shine my light. Don't hide your light behind the bushel, you know, and that's all very true. But I think he's taking it to another octave here in what he's saying, because to unmask fearlessly and shine the light of who we are, we have to understand that who we are is not necessarily even who we think we are in our heart of hearts. Not that that's erroneous, but it's just not the complete picture. So we can say, well, I know who I am. I feel my heart. And yes, you do, but there's more. And I think he's asking us to unmask fearlessly. I mean, we got to take off that mask. That means that all our impressions, our sacred beliefs, our cherished thoughts are going to be opened to higher octaves. And that sensation in the human experience is, oh my God, it's trying to tear me away from my base core, for who I think I am. I can't go there because, you know, it's just an expansion. But the human element at times, you know, constricts on that, because I think I can't leave my base. So that's, I think, what he's offering. That's when he comes up to this other line that I really liked, which I got to find it again. Let our sight be filled with the glory of the station we represent on earth. In other words, it's not just about me, myself, and I. What is the station of light that we represent? It's not a belief system. It's not some kind of an order. I swear allegiance. It's beyond that, but it is a station of light. It has a protocol. It has a position of spiritual authority, not, you know, putting other people down. Just a spiritual authority of inner being. And it is beyond the personal self. And we can look to masters in the past that we identify as masters, both, of course, included, but you know, name them. There's plenty of masters out there that have done just that. They still were nice and friendly people, and they loved you, and they could maybe joke a little bit with you, but they were not there to represent their personal spiritual path. They were there to represent the station of light that sent them here. And we're all sent here by a station of light. Some people have really strayed from it, some have not. But it's time for us to truly, as he says here, let me go back to it again. I'm going to read the whole thing. Keep our eyes on the path. Let no distractions overcome us. Hold firmly to the golden thread leading us to the threshold of the star of our becoming, the very star of our becoming. That's our creation star. Let our sight be filled with the glory of the station we represent on earth. And we don't have to define it. We don't have to go, oh my God, okay, what is my station? I've got to write, I've got to journal it. No, yeah, I mean, journaling is always helpful. I'm not putting that down. But the point is, it's, you know, you can think about it. You can write things that help you, you know, interpret it. But really, it's beyond that. It's feeling it in your being. It's opening up to that light path. It's living it without even having to put it into words. And that's a big, you know, that's a tall order. I'm not saying that I can do it. But I can. I shouldn't say that. We all can do it, you know. It's just that it seems like a big, like a tall mountain to climb. But once you put your toe in the water, once you just put the tiniest little bit of yourself into that dedication, the whole thing opens up to you, because it's a hologram of expression. So one little fractal of it represents the whole picture.
Right. So the next question people will naturally ask is, okay, I received this, I'm inspired by this, how do I do it? What do I do? I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, got to connect to my station, my higher being, got to take out the garbage, I've got to, fry the eggs. And I've got to step into my station. See, how do I step into my station? So what we are going to share with you today are some powerful ways in which that can be done, not only for oneself, stepping into one's higher being, one's higher self, but also using intention and sacred science to do that for larger causes. I just want to share a brief story about what I think you're describing. When there's our personal self, and then there's what we might call our higher self, or our station, a divine station that we came here to manifest. The great saint of India of the 19th century, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, who founded the Vedanta Society, of whom the great representative of the United States, Swami Vivekananda, came to the Columbian Exposition in 1893 in Chicago and gave the first great message on yoga to the West. And his guru was Ramakrishna. And Ramakrishna pursued many different paths, all leading, because he was a spiritual genius, to divine oneness. And Vivekananda was an intellectual in Calcutta who gradually came to this divine awakening. And Ramakrishna regarded Vivekananda as like his son and this dearly beloved disciple. And he said of him, if you could only realize how vast the true soul of my Naren, I think he called him, was, that just a little fraction of the soul of Naren came down to incarnate in this body, that he was this great realized soul in his essence, his higher self, as you're describing. But a moment came when Ramakrishna wanted to bestow an experience of samadhi, of superconsciousness, upon Vivekananda. He felt, he was ready. And there are ways in India that are understood for a master to be able to transmit this experience, a touch on the heart chakra or the crown chakra. And so he was giving this experience to Vivekananda, so now I'm going to put you in touch with your higher self. And as you say, his personal self started to fall away, and he's rising into this universal oneness with Kali, with the divine goddess, mother, divine mother of the universe. And he actually stopped. He said, "Whoa, what are you doing? What are you taking away? I'm dropping I have a family. I have a house. I have bills to pay. This greater self that I truly am is scaring the bejesus out of me." And that there is that, factor for us. Go ahead.
I think that, Thoth is not really expecting us to go to that extent. I mean, some people might, I can't say not, but, I don't want to scare people about this. I think he's talking about, their levels, their graduations, their gradients of this. And I think that he's talking about a level that we can exist and we can operate in this world and still take care of our families and whatever, and still have that abiding feeling of the station of light, rather than completely, surrendering to it. We are going into these levels of that generate an energy that allows our perceptions to expand and to encompass more than the personal self.
Yeah, and as you step onto a path that your soul has guided you to, and if you use your discernment and study it thoroughly, certainly, the paths that a lot of the people in our community, the various paths they've chosen, you will be guided. Now we have our German Shepherd checking it. Into a gradual unfoldment that, as you say, is not frightening, right?
Yes.
So, anyway, so I would like, I think we're about an hour into our program, and we have our special guests waiting for us. I don't want to keep them.
Before we start, I have to mention the pendants, because if I don't mention them now, they probably aren't going to be mentioned. I'll just very briefly.
Okay. Please go for it.
We do have the reverse marker pendants ready with the shungite inlaid in them. They've been created according to Thoth's guidance through me, but by a lovely young couple, and we have the link below the video to their store. It's called here it is. It's called Sacred Geometry Healing, and the page takes you right to the shungite shield pendants. You will be able to read about it. If you're not familiar about it, you can read on their page. There is also a link to my page of information about the reverse marker and the properties of it, and how I feel it can help in the current situation. So the link, look for the below. I'm not receiving any financial gain from these pendants, and this young couple works so hard to create these, and they use their tools and everything, so they're placing a very minimum price just to cover their expenses and their time on the pendants. So I just wanted to share that, and it will be below the video. Okay, that's it.
Okay, and I apologize for the background noise. Here in the San Luis Valley, it's a big, vast, sparsely populated, beautiful wilderness. And on Thursday mornings, the garbage truck comes. And when the garbage truck comes, the German Shepherd needs to remind everybody that he's a German Shepherd in a very vocal fashion. So we'll hear the garbage truck and the guard dog in the background unavoidably. So I really want to express my appreciation for the patience with which our special guests, Mary Hardy and Gayle Mack and Chad Edward, have waited for us. I'd like to just do a little bit of introduction and background. I'll ask each of them to share a little bit about their story. The Temple of SAKKARA was founded by Mary Hardy, and she will share her own story with us. This is specifically a Templar stream of sacred science, and a specific necessity for its being utilized at this time in controlling what Mary refers to as the motor of the earth and the grids of Gaia, of our Mother Earth, which the Templars understood how to utilize and control for the benefit of humanity. Now, we always like to remind people, and so when you talk about Templars, the name is bandied about, it's smeared, it's tainted by various rogue groups who use the name. We use the name in its original context and meaning of a high order of souls committed to the work of the ascension of human consciousness, of the temple of the divine, of the temple of this planet, and of serving selflessly in that capacity. So it's just important to remember, you can say whatever you want about Babylonian financial schemes and what have you. Okay, that's the old defamation agenda that the DF, Dark Forces, use with many high and beautiful missions and organizations to defame them, by infiltration and all the rest of it. But it's just a little reminder of what we mean when we refer to the Templars. So I will also share a little bit here about Gayle Mack at keystoascension.com will be where you can find Gayle's work. And we encourage everyone to also look up the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol. And we'll have these links on the program here on the YouTube channel for beautiful, brief, very easy to learn instructional videos on how to use the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol, specifically employing toroidal energies and the energies of the grids and of Mother Earth to uplift our own consciousness and for sacred intention and healing. As Gayle describes it on her website, the Holy Grail Vortex as a spiritual tool. It is one of the most powerful tools that I use in my spiritual work, this is Gayle speaking, to shift energies and to manifest divine intent. Whether you're working on yourself, your loved ones, your community, human consciousness, or planetary betterment, you now have an easy, effective way to make positive improvements. This amazing tool accesses Earth energies through physics, prayer, love, and grace. And she describes the Holy Grail Vortex as essentially a standing columnar wave created with the power of your words and intent. It is the sword and the cup. In Grail history, it is the use of the sword and the cup that manifests the Holy Grail. Most importantly, the Holy Grail Vortex is an energy system. It is a complete antenna system that shifts, retunes, and brings balance to issues and circumstances, whether it be personal, for local community, or for worldwide issues. The Holy Grail Vortex has been used to heal communities, heal loved ones and self, to send prayers and supportive energy to areas in crisis, and to diffuse weather patterns, to name a few. And you must always ask permission from your God source and Mother Earth before you send your intent out through her grid lines, and ask that your intention be for the greatest good of all concerned, with harm to none. You see, the important thing is to have more people clear out of the emergency rooms so they can stop all this foolishness about what we call the infection. Just for purposes of avoiding censorship, I'll refer to it as the infection, which was created, and this is from Mary, by 60 gigahertz fifth generation. Again, I use fifth generation rather than the more familiar term to avoid censorship. Fifth generation telecommunications network. So that the infection is exacerbated by fifth generation network. We've been given permission to use the Earth's motor and the grid to balance things out so we can go back to work. That is the job of the Temple of SAKKARA. Please do the Holy Grail Vortex whenever you think about it. We are now in a time period where we can graduate. It is important that we bring the temple energy to the grid to help people so they can graduate. That, if you want a distillation of the essence of what the Templar work is about, it'd be hard to find something better than that. I'll say it again. This is from Mary Hardy. Please do the Holy Grail Vortex whenever you think about balancing the planet and healing the infection. We are now in a time period when we can graduate. In other words, ascension, right? Temple energy to the grid to help people so they can graduate. I'm going to read on some of what you shared, Mary. This is my feelings. The Templars took the name of Templar because they wanted to protect free will so that mankind can make his body a temple. In the year 1996, 12 Knights Templar came to me and asked me if I would work with them. They wanted me to go to the cathedrals and protect them from, and with your permission, Mary, I'll use the euphemism, the dark forces, putting radio stations in the cathedrals. At the year 2000, the Y2K, the computer shutdown was supposed to happen. The dark forces built a large dome in London's harbour. At that time, they planned to move Stonehenge, the main control panel for the Earth's motoring grid, over to the Millennium Dome so they could control free will. In the year 1996 to 2001, I traveled to Europe, England, Spain, and France using the Holy Grail Vortex to allow the Knights to shut down these stations so they could not transmit to the Millennium Dome, which would essentially impair completely human free will on the planet. I do want to mention that when you say 12 Knights Templar came to you, you have shared with us that they were on the etheric level, that these were not Knights Templar in a body walking around, but rather came to you in spirit. So since 1996 until now, that's 24 years, Temple of SAKKARA have been using the Holy Grail Vortex to protect the Earth's motor and grid. And then you share, a few stories, in 2006 with Stonehenge. And so what I'd love for you and Gayle to share with us is, some of these really revealing stories of specific incidences in which you were using the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol, the effect that it had, and also, the monitoring of what you were doing by the dark forces, like with SUVs with tinted windows showing up and being buzzed by black helicopters and that sort of thing, simply by standing in a circle doing the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol of working with toroidal energies, just 7 or 8 people standing in a circle near Stonehenge. This technology, this sacred technology, pierces the dark control, and they monitor it. And when they perceive that it's being messed with by sacred forces, they send people to check it out. And to me, this is one of the things where I go, okay, there's something real going on here, because they're being monitored 30, 45 minutes after you begin doing your work, quietly, without using devices. You get interfered with. So with that, I'd like to, and Chad has joined us as well. Welcome, Chad Edward, who is also a Knight of the Temple of SAKKARA. And Mary and Gayle and Chad have also blessed our community with their participating in a Johannine Templar. Okay, so here we all are, and there is the guardian cat Moo perched on Maia's chair, who is providing Egyptian cat deity protection, right? Anyway,
That's right.
So I'd kind of like to get into some of these stories around the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol, but I'd also like to have each of you just share a little bit. I've shared on Mary's background. Gayle, would you like to give us just a little bit of further background about how you came to the Temple of SAKKARA work and the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol through your own background as a clairvoyant and healer?
Okay, so I met Mary in 96. I actually met her before, but Mary came to one of my tours to France on the Holy Grail Vortex, the Holy Grail and Black Madonna tours in France, and it was during one of those tours that she experienced the Holy Grail Vortex and having the 12th dimensional Knights Templar come to her at the same time that I was on top of Mount Bucharest receiving, which is a 12th dimensional Stargate, and I was having my Beam Me Up Scotty experience. But Mary and I, from the time we met on this tour, we started working together. And the power of the Holy Grail Vortex, because we're alchemists, the shifting of the energy and the moment that you put your intention into that Holy Grail Vortex and you start to spin the energy vortex clockwise and counterclockwise, it sets up an energetic field that manifests out of the nothing, which is that absolute 0 point subtle organizing energy in the tachyon field. They all start to work together and manifest your intention. So Mary and I quickly, we realized that we had a powerful tool that Divine had given us. And we've just been sharing it and using it in a multitude of ways since 96.
Okay, thank you for that, Gayle. That reminds me so forcibly in your description of the 0 point connection to, the tachyon field, the quantum field, I think would be another accurate way of saying it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which of course, for those of us working with shungite, the remarkable mineral from northwestern Russia, the fullerene molecule, which is the active element in shungite that allows it to purify water, to benefit the immune system, to restore bee colony collapse, and the many remarkable things that it does. The fullerene molecule has such an astonishing rate of spin and stability that the toxins in water go away. It's not like a filtering system where you have to clean the filters. They've just disappeared. They have literally vanished from manifestation because the 0 point connection of the shungite field is essentially a link to the quantum field. It has a bio-enhancing spin. It enhances life such that things that are anti-bio, negative spin, are essentially spun out of existence and back to the quantum field. And it has been found that the shungite field has an intelligence and it works with intention. In the same way, that you have experienced, all of you in the Temple of SAKKARA and the Holy Grail Vortex work, that the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol works with intention when you sanctify that intention by asking divine permission from Mother Earth. Would that be an accurate way to describe it?
Yes, because we're alchemists, and alchemist is creating something from nothing, no thing, but it's actually rearranging the energy and the molecules, the particles of energy. And when you change the energy, you change the manifestation of mass, the energy of mass. And that's where the tachyon field lies. It's between energy and matter. So when you create an intention and you do it with the highest frequency there is, unconditional love, and you put a spiritual tool of shifting the energy and creating vortex, you amp up that intention and that prayer, and that's where manifestation comes from. As soon as you think it, it's already, the spark has been created, and that tachyon field starts manifesting into physical form.
Well, that's what we are here to share with everybody. And when we air this program, because this is being recorded on Thursday the 16th, and it'll air on Friday the 17th at 2 o'clock Pacific time, we will include not only the links to the Holy Grail Vortex YouTube channel, we'll actually play one of the videos, the instructional videos, so that, because we always want to send people away from these programs with tools in hand, not just having spent a couple of hours listening to some people share about fascinating stuff, whiling away a couple of hours of lockdown time, right? No, we are here to, it's about applied sacred science in the global crisis. So I'd like to just say hello, Chad, and welcome to you. Would you please also share with us a little bit about, your background as a healer and how you came to the Temple of
Well,
SAKKARA community and the Holy Grail Vortex.
right. Well, before I do that, you were just on the subject of shungite, and I don't know if people know what shungite looks like, but a little piece like this, or I keep a couple pieces in my pocket. I have one around my neck. I don't know if you showed any shungite. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just giving people what it looks like, right? And so they know what it does now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, my
And
background
we'll have a
is
good source for it as well on a link, so everybody can
Oh, good.
get some if
good.
they.
Very good. Yeah, my background is like Gayle's. I'm a an MD, naturopath, and I share some of my healing technologies. I use a lot of machines, plasma machines. It's all energy, as everyone knows, and sometimes you don't need machines, but we use them. People need training wheels. And what I've been doing in the past is helping Mary and Gayle. I guess I kind of represent, you should always have a divine masculine and feminine in anything if you're doing some sacred work. So when Gayle and I go places, I guess I represent the divine masculine. Gayle represents the feminine. Mary also. And when we spin the Holy Grail Vortex, I'm not going to put too much into it here because I could go on and on for hours talking about this stuff. But what I'd like to share is when I do the Holy Grail Vortex, and you guys know about the great invocation that we say at the end. Okay, I just look at it as the last line, as the divine masculine in this world is the light. The feminine is love, and I see us all as Templars, as support for the divine masculine and the feminine. And the last line says this: let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. So once we learn how to do vortex, and we all learn that last line, I just want everybody to think about what that really means. So we're putting divine masculine first, the divine feminine of love second, and Gayle always likes to say, instead of power, divine power, restore the plan on earth. And I believe that's what we're all doing now as Templars and healers. We're the divine power part.
So it's not that we're moving from the masculine to the feminine. We've already been in the feminine, sacred feminine, divine feminine mindset, and we moved into the divine or the masculine mindset. But we're now coming into the balance where both the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine are coming together in a union. And in that union, it creates the oneness. It's the mystical marriage. It's hierogamous. It's the oneness and that polarity of opposites that are complete opposites, but it's one and the same. So it's the blending, and the masculine energy is the blue flame, the feminine is the pink flame, and when you put them together, it creates the violet flame, and then the violet flame goes into divine light, and that's in my opinion. But it really is the time where we're coming and we're working both because they're necessary, and it's the union of the opposites. So there's times when one's going to be more important, needs to take the lead, not more important, but one needs to take the lead. And it's a give and take, this ebb and flow. And it goes back to the Hermetic laws, mind is all, and then the law of polarity and gender. It's all of that comes together in this balance of energy of the feminine, the masculine, and the oneness. And we're moving back into that oneness and remembering that.
Exactly. That's so much of what I have learned over the last few years about the Templar esoteric legacy and teaching is about that balance, that union. And it's very easy to think it's like, okay, the masculine has screwed it up, time for the feminine to come in. And I hear you, Chad. I mean, it's hard to look around, the exploitation of what you would call the debased masculine, the exploitation of Mother Earth's resources,
right,
and the destruction of it, by an exploitative, debased masculine dynamic, and not say, okay, well, the masculine has screwed it up. Well, again, that's the debased masculine. It's not the exalted masculine. And we have.
I didn't explain it that well. Yeah.
Well, I hear you. I mean, it's you were expressing an accurate picture to me, and then Gayle brought it all together, which is the debased masculine isn't even aware of the feminine within ourselves. Of course, each one of us needs to seek a balance of the feminine and masculine principles within ourselves. Now, generally speaking, of course, there will be, as Paramahansa Yogananda says, that that for the masculine, reason is foremost and feeling hidden, and for the feminine, feeling is foremost and reason, a little bit more back burner, you might say. But each of us has both within us and can call forward these qualities in sacred union, in balance, as called upon. This is what the 1111 symbol really means, this powerful numerological symbol that shows up for people synchronistically when they're aligned with something true and divine. Well, the masculine and the feminine within me meet the masculine and the feminine within another soul, creating, if there's union here between these two pillars and the two pillars within you, we come together in sacred union, and that's symbolically represented as the 1111. And, it's just one of those things that I have found, giving talks or going online or talking about this stuff, talking about the rise of the divine feminine. It's true, and it's important because the divine feminine has been squashed and suppressed within ourselves, within each man, within each woman, within, the planetary consciousness. And now it's time for that repressed aspect to come into union with the sacred masculine within ourselves and to balance the world. And I mean, it's kind of like affirmative action, on the legislative level where they said, minorities have been oppressed, we have to lift them back up somewhat artificially, through quotas and the rest of it. It's a crude analogy, but it kind of feels that way where, yeah, we definitely do need to address the restoration of the divine feminine within ourselves and on the planet, but not so that this ends up being a matriarchy and, 26,000 years of feminine rule. It's the balance that we need to restore the divine feminine to balance with the sacred masculine within ourselves and the planet. Anyway, that's my little speech on it. And thank you for bringing this forward. So, Mary, I'd love to call on you to, I'm sorry, Maya, did you want to pop in there? Can't hear you.
One tiny thing I want to add to that, and that is we have to realize, and I know we all do, but I'm just bringing it to the fore, that we all incarnated in both male and female forms. And if we remove the linear time factor, we're still males somewhere, and while we're females here, and vice versa. So there's a reordering of the actual consciousness of the male-female energy in a way that brings a response from my masculine self, not just within me, but the living person that I may be in some past life, future life, but it's concordant with now because everything is in the now moment, to reorder that relationship. So yes, we're having a relationship within us of the masculine and feminine inside us as the person we are now. Our past lives, our future lives, our alternate now lives, and bring that experiential living in the other gender into harmony with the experiential living of the opposite gender that we have right now.
Yeah, that's so true. And it addresses, there's this tribalization and divisiveness being fostered everywhere you look, between the genders, between various races, between generations. Like the millennials are saying, oh, good, the infection's going to be the boomer doomer, and we'll get rid of those obnoxious, older people who are those fuddy-duddies. I mean, it's funny, but it's bleak and cruel. And then you have, women being divided against men, and races, and of course the dark faction fosters this, wants to keep us divided. And when you come to the masculine and feminine, to me, this is one of the most unfortunate manifestations of this. That, I've lived long enough to see very clearly stereotypical male reactions in myself, and to at least track them, to be able to understand that listening is good. Coming up with your problem-solving dynamic. Okay, I got the picture, babe. Let me tell you, here's how we're going to solve your problem. This is not good, generally speaking. But this dynamic that's being addressed about, we've all been men, we've all been women. Yes, we need to own who we are in this life and be a natural human being. And, yeah, okay, we come in a male body this time. But as souls, we transcend gender. As souls, we have been in both genders, many times. And so, we need not to, blame ourselves for the sins of all men, going back through the dark ages of the last couple thousand years, nor identify too much with, the virtuous compassion of the feminine. No, you bad men, you oppressed and tortured us. Perfectly true. And we are souls. So that said, Mary, thank you for your patience with us. I would love to get right to the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol and some of the stories that you and Chad and can share as well.
So we were in Rennes-le-Chateau, and we were in our friend's backyard, and they had mentioned that the bell in the Magdalene Tower had been changed overnight. And instead of being that perfect D sharp that when it rang out, it centered and awakened and vibrated everyone's pineal, it was a disharmonic tone that kind of just kind of went through the body in a negative energy. So Mary says, well, let's just change the tone. And we said, can we do that? She goes, sure, absolutely. It's energy. We have the Holy Grail Vortex, so we put our intention to bring the bell back to its original tone that would ring out harmony and love for the greatest and highest good. So we created the Holy Grail Vortex. We put our prayer in the center, and we created the Holy Grail Vortex. And then we started doing energy where we were creating the vortexes, and everybody there was going counterclockwise or clockwise, and we were shifting the energy physically within ourselves. And then 12 noon came, and the first bell tone rang, and it was that disharmonic tone. And then it rang a second time, and the third time it was a little off from the first two. And each time it rang, the pitch went higher and higher and higher, and the last three pitches rung out pure D sharp. And people in Rennes-le-Chateau were stopping and pointing at the bell. And where we were in the garden, we could see the people in the street pointing up to the bell. And they looked at us, they knew that we were the ones that were shifting the energy. And the garden that we were at is on the edge of the Pyrenees Mountains, and it went straight drop down like 2,000 feet. So the bell rang out the last three tones in D sharp. It was beautiful. We all cheered. And then we heard wolf, wolf, wolf. And these two black op helicopters came up the side of the Pyrenees and were looking at us in the garden, and they had the machine guns on the rudders of the helicopter. And Mary says, they're taking your picture, people. And it's one of my favorite stories because Mary put her hands on her hips and she leans forward and she says, "I'm Mary Hardy. You already have my picture." And I said, "Oh, picture. Let's vogue." So we all started to vogue. We became tourists. And the pilots were shaking their heads. They were laughing, and they said, one fella said, "What are we doing here?" And the fella says, "We're good here." And they just went on. But the reason they came is because at that time, the powers that want to be in control had placed an electromagnetic grid that was interfering with the natural harmonics. And so you have the natural harmonics of the earth, and then there was a grid that's created by the cell towers and different antennas. So when we created the Holy Grail Vortex, we created a standing column or wave, and it shot a hole right through the imposed grid. So they had to come check out what this beam of energy was, and it was unconditional love. And it's so we knew then that we were being recorded, and that the energy that we were putting out in our intention and with the Holy Grail Vortex was powerful, it was measurable, and it was creatable. And we always do it for the greatest and highest good.
Well, I love that story. And, you know, what you're describing to me is so powerful. And I know it's been the purpose of the Temple of SAKKARA and Mary's work and you and Chad and other teachers of the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol to, you know, restore that natural harmonic and to break through that control grid and ultimately to disable it. Now, of course, the beautiful thing about this is you're just a few people standing in a circle, you know, using these toroidal energies in the spirit of unconditional love and connection to the divine. And you can't arrest people. You can't arrest people for standing in a circle and using these energies. I remember it being brought up, I think Mary, you said at one point that because you're not using a device of any kind, that there is a treaty at some level where you cannot arrest people for exercising their sovereign spiritual power in connection to the divine. If they're using a device and they're disrupting some grid, well, okay, whether it's at the extraplanetary legal level or UN level or wherever this supposed treaty exists, they know they can't touch you if you're not using a device. And if enough of us start to do this, if we can help spread it, you know, you've already been sharing it all over.
It's
but
the power
to
of
me,
prayer.
Pardon?
It's the power of prayer.
Yes, exactly. And that's, to me, when, you know, the message for 2020 that we shared at the beginning that came to Maia on New Year's Eve, this small light that is spoken of by Thoth that will be ignored and dismissed by many, but will grow to become this powerful transformative force. That's what I think of when I think about the Shungite field, the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol, the work that Maia does with the Tesialectic field. It's so intimately connected, you know, as you say, the 0 point energy, that this can, you know, if a critical number of us are doing this, you know, the growth in freedom and healing and restoration, the dissolution of the 60 hertz fifth generation influence with the infection that's going on, that can be dissolved. It's, you know, the story about the black helicopters showing up and the bell being retuned and everybody in Rennes le Chateau seeing it, feeling it, pointing to it, knowing that you were doing that work. And, you know, it's a weird kind of confirmation to get, to have a black helicopter show up with machine guns on it, that what you're doing is real. I'll take it as proof that what you're doing is real. It's a little difficult for me to keep on top of our time here, but there is something that I would very much like to share. And as I mentioned earlier, we will be including in this broadcast, we'll call it, a video from Mary's channel, the actual practice of the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol. But I would very much like, Gayle, if you would say aloud for us as a closing prayer, the great invocation that is always a part of the Holy Grail Vortex Protocol practice. If you want to share anything about the origin of the great invocation or how you use it, please do so. But could you, as a way of reaching beautiful closure on our sharing today, it would be wonderful if you'd be willing to share the great invocation with us.
Thank you. The great invocation was delivered, it was channeled, and delivered at the United Nations as a prayer for peace. And it holds a lot of sacredness, and when you read it and you see that there's certain words that are capitalized, like Chad goes into this sometimes about the capitalization, like the mind of God. And when M in mind is capitalized, it's God's mind. And when it's small, it's human consciousness mind. So ego mind. So when you read it too, and you see that certain letters are capitalized, it really gives that little extra meaningful energy and heartfelt energy to it.
From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let love and light and divine power restore the plan on earth. Thank you all so much. I'll touch base with all of you in the wake of this. Maybe we want to have you back on when we have a clear signal and have an uninterrupted sharing. I would love that. So thank you so much for taking your time today. My feeling is we're going to be able to share something beautiful tomorrow. I'm going to have to do a lot of cutting and pasting and what have you, and we will have. Go ahead.
You're a magician. You're an alchemist.
Yes,
Thank
he
you.
is.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Thank you,
Yeah,
Maya.
thanks,
Thank
Chad.
you.
Mary,
All of
bless
you.
you.
Thank
Love
you
you
both.
all. I so look forward to. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah.
When I goes on
Yep, we hear you.
We hear you, Mary.
to thank him, I'm going to get myself my oxygen.
Yeah.
All right. We'll so look forward to that. to all being in the same room and hugging each other.
Yes.
Yes.
Good old
No,
days.
no coronavirus. Right.
No more. Out the window with that nonsense. Yeah. All right. Well, bless you. Love you all. Thanks so much, everybody.
The end of August.
Yep.
Okay. That looks good to me.
Okay.
We'll go
All right.
for it. All right.
We'll
gonna
talk to you
close
guys
up.
soon. Love you all.
Love you all. Be well.
Take
Bye, Maya.
Bye-bye.